The rusty chains clanked against the wooden beam as Hannah Brightwater struggled against her bonds, her wrists raw and bleeding from 3 days of captivity. The abandoned mill where Mordecai Grimwald had left her reeked of decay and desperation. Shadows dancing across the rotting floorboards as storm clouds gathered overhead. Caleb. Ironwood heard her muffled cries through the howling wind as he sought shelter from the approaching tempest. The drifter had wandered these Missouri hills for months, running from a past that haunted his dreams. But the sound of human suffering cut through his own pain like a blade. He kicked down the mill's warped door, his weathered hands instinctively reaching for the knife at his belt. What he found inside made his blood run cold. A woman barely 20, her auburn hair matted with dirt, her green eyes wide with terror and fading hope. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, rushing to her side. Her dress was torn, revealing purple bruises. That spoke of unspeakable cruelty. "Who did this to you?" Hannah flinched at his approach, her voice a broken whisper. "Please, don't hurt me anymore." Caleb's scarred hands worked gently at the chains, his movements careful and deliberate. "I'm not here to hurt you, miss. Name's Caleb. I'm getting you out of here." As the shackles fell away, Hannah collapsed into his arms, her body trembling. With exhaustion and relief, Caleb lifted her easily, his strong frame carrying her toward the door as thunder crashed overhead. "Where are you taking me?" she managed to ask, her voice barely audible above the storm. "My cabin's not far," he replied, shielding her from the driving rain. "You're safe now, I promise you that." The wind whipped through the trees as Caleb navigated the treacherous mountain path. Hannah's weighed nothing compared to the burden of rage building in his chest. Whoever had done this to her would pay, but first, he had to save her life. Lightning illuminated the small log cabin nestled among the pines, smoke still curling from its chimney. Caleb kicked open the door and carried Hannah inside, laying her gently on his bed near the fireplace. "Water," she croaked, her lips cracked and bleeding. Caleb brought her a cup with shaking hands, helping her drink slowly. "Easy now, don't rush it." As the warmth from the fire began to thaw her frozen limbs, Hannah studied her rescuer's face. Deep lines etched his weathered features, and a jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw. His dark eyes held secrets, and pain, but also something she hadn't seen in weeks, kindness. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you save me?" Caleb stoked the fire, avoiding her gaze. "'Cause someone should have saved my sister before it was too late." Hannah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her dirt-stained cheeks. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe she might actually survive this nightmare. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the protective presence of her mysterious savior, Hannah Brightwater began to hope again. Dawn broke gray and sullen over the mountains as Hannah stirred from the first peaceful sleep, like she'd known in weeks. The scent of bacon and coffee filled the small cabin, and she found Caleb hunched over the wood stove, his broad shoulders tense beneath his flannel shirt. "You don't have to cook for me," she said, her voice still hoarse from screaming. He turned, holding a steaming plate. "You need to eat. Get your strength back." Hannah accepted the food gratefully, noting how he kept his distance, as if afraid to frighten her. "Tell me about your sister," she said quietly. Caleb's jaw tightened. Her name was Melody. She was taken by men like the one who hurt you. I couldn't save her." "Is that why you live up here alone? Couldn't stand being around people?" After that, kept seeing her face everywhere. He poured himself coffee with unsteady hands. "Been drifting for 2 years now." Hannah watched him carefully, seeing through his gruff exterior to the broken man beneath. "What happened to the men who took her?" "Dead. All of them." His voice was flat, emotionless.
"Ow."
But it didn't bring her back. The weight of his confession hung heavy in the air. Hannah set down her fork, studying this man who had risked everything to save a stranger. "The man who took me, ... His name is Mordecai Grimwald. He owns half the valley below." Caleb's knuckles whitened around his coffee cup. "I know the name. Rich bastard with a taste for young girls. He said he was coming back for me. Said he had plans." Hannah shuddered, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "He won't touch you again," Caleb growled. "I'll kill him first." "No." Hannah's voice was surprisingly firm. I won't let you destroy yourself for revenge like I almost did. There has to be another way." Caleb stared at her in amazement. After everything she'd endured, she was thinking of his welfare. "You're stronger than you know, Hannah Brightwater." She smiled sadly. "I don't feel strong. I feel broken." "Broken things can be mended," he said gently. "Takes time, but they can be made whole again." Over the following days, Caleb tended to Hannah's wounds with surprising gentleness. He changed her bandages, brought her meals, and sat quietly by the fire while she slept. Standing guard against the nightmares that plagued her rest, Hannah found herself watching him when he thought she wasn't looking, studying the way his hands worked with wood and metal, the way he moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency. There was a deep loneliness in him that matched her own, a soul as damaged as hers, but somehow still capable of hope. "Why do you stay?" she asked one evening as they sat before the fire. "Where else would I go? You could have a life, Caleb. A real life." He met her eyes across the flickering flames. "Could I?" "We all deserve a second chance," she whispered. "Even you." A week passed in the sanctuary of the cabin, and Hannah began to emerge from her shell of terror. She helped Caleb with simple tasks, mending clothes, preparing meals, organizing his meager possessions. Each small act of normalcy helped rebuild the pieces of herself that Grimwald had tried to destroy. "You don't have to do that," Caleb said, finding her washing dishes in the wooden basin. "I want to help. You've done so much for me." Hannah dried, her hands on a rough towel, turning to face him. "Besides, it makes me feel useful again." Caleb leaned against the doorframe, studying her face in the lamplight. The bruises were fading, replaced by a healthy flush in her cheeks. Her hair, now clean and brushed, caught the golden glow of the fire. "Tell me about your life before," he said softly. "Before Grimwald." Hannah's hands stilled on the towel. "Lived with my aunt in Millbrook Valley. She raised me after my parents died of fever. I worked in her bakery, helped with the customers." Her voice grew wistful. "I was engaged to be married to a good man named Josiah Fletcher. We were planning a spring wedding. What happened? Grimwald saw me at the harvest dance. He made me an offer, said he'd buy my aunt's bakery, give us enough money to start over somewhere else. All I had to do was come work for him as a house servant." Hannah's laugh was bitter. "I was so naive. I thought he was being generous." Caleb's fists clenched at his sides. "And when you refused, he had my aunt's loans called in. Suddenly, she owed more money than the bakery was worth. And that didn't work. He had Josiah beaten so badly. He lost the sight in one eye." Tears coursed down Hannah's cheeks. "I couldn't let anyone else get hurt because of me. So you went to him?" "I went to him. And he showed me what kind of monster he really was." Hannah wrapped her arms around herself, fighting off the memories. "He kept me locked in his cellar for weeks, said he was training me to be properly obedient." Caleb crossed the room in 3 swift strides, pulling her into his arms before he could stop himself. Hannah tensed for a moment, then melted against his chest, her tears soaking into his shirt. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so goddamn sorry." They stood there in the firelight, 2 broken souls, finding comfort in each other's pain. Hannah breathed in his scentwood smoke and leather, and something uniquely masculine that made her feel safe for the first time in months. "I dream about him," she admitted. "Every night I dream he's found me again." "He won't," Caleb promised fiercely. "I'll die before I let him touch you." Hannah pulled back to look into his eyes, seeing the truth of his words written there. "Can't stay here forever, protecting me. You have your own life to live." "My life ended when Melody died," he said quietly. "This taking care of you it's the first thing that's felt right since then." Hannah reached up to trace the scar on his face with gentle fingers. "Maybe we can help each other heal." Caleb caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. "Maybe we can." 2 more weeks passed, and the first snows of winter began to dust the mountain peaks. Hannah had grown stronger, both in body and spirit, but with her recovery came an awareness of the man who had saved her that went beyond simple gratitude. She watched him chopping wood in the crisp morning air. his muscles straining against his shirt, and felt a flutter of desire that both thrilled and terrified her. How could she want a man's touch after what Grimwald had done to her? "You're staring," Caleb said without turning around, a hint of amusement in his voice. Hannah blushed crimson. "I was just— You work so hard. Don't you ever rest?" He set down his axe and turned to face her, sweat glistening on his chest, despite the cold. "Rest is dangerous. Gives a man too much time to think." "Maybe thinking isn't always bad," Hannah said softly. "Maybe it's time you stopped running from your thoughts." Caleb's expression darkened. "You don't know what goes on in my head, Hannah. The things I've done, the people I've killed. I know you saved me when you could have kept walking. I know you've been nothing but gentle and kind, even when I wake up screaming in the middle of the night." Hannah stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. "I know you're a good man, Caleb Ironwood, no matter what you've done in the past." He caught her wrist, his grip firm but not painful. Don't touch me like that." "Why, Hannah's?" The voice was barely a whisper. "Are you afraid you'll hurt me?" "I'm afraid I won't be able to stop myself from wanting you," he admitted roughly. "And you deserve better than some broken-down drifter who kills men in their sleep." Hannah's breath caught in her throat. The intensity in his eyes made her knees weak, but instead of fear, she felt a surge of feminine power she thought Grimwald had destroyed forever. "What if I want you to?" she whispered. Caleb released her wrist as if it burned him, stepping back. "You don't know what you're saying? You're still healing? Still vulnerable? ... I'm not a child, Caleb. I'm a woman who's been through hell and back, and I know my own mind." Hannah followed him, her hand pressing against his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palm. "I know the difference between a man who takes what he wants and a man who treasures what he's given." Caleb's resolve crumbled. His hands came up to cup her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was shedding. "Hannah, ... kiss me," she breathed. "Please, I need to know I can still feel something good." Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deeper as Hannah pressed closer, her arms winding around his neck. Caleb tasted like coffee and promises like salvation and sin, all wrapped together. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, their foreheads pressed together. "This is crazy," Caleb murmured. "We barely know each other. I know you risked your life to save mine. I know you could have taken advantage of me a dozen times over, but you've never even tried. I know you make me feel alive again when I thought I'd never feel anything but fear." Hannah's fingers tangled in his dark hair. "Isn't that enough to start with?" Caleb's answer was another kiss, deeper this time, full of hunger and need and the desperate hope of two souls finding each other. In the darkness, first blizzard of winter trapped them in the cabin for 3 days. But neither complained about the forced intimacy. Hannah found herself stealing glances at Caleb as he moved around the small space, marveling at how his presence filled every corner with warmth and safety. On the second night, as the wind howled outside, Hannah woke from another nightmare, Grimwald's voice echoing in her dreams. She sat up in bed, trembling and gasping for air. "Hannah," Caleb's voice came from his bedroll by the fire. "Another bad dream?" She nodded, unable to speak past the fear clogging her throat. Without hesitation, Caleb rose and came to sit on the edge of her bed, his hand gentle on her back. "What to me?" he said softly. "What did you see him?" "Always him," he was laughing. "Telling me you weren't real, that no one would ever want someone as damaged as me?" Hannah buried her face in her hands. "Maybe he's right. Look at me." Caleb's voice was firm but kind. When she raised her eyes to his, she saw fierce determination in their depths. "You are not damaged. You are not broken beyond repair. You are the strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever known, and any man would be honored to have your heart." "Even you," Hannah whispered. Instead of answering with words, Caleb kissed her, pouring all his emotion into the gentle press of his lips against hers. When they parted, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Especially me," he said roughly. "You, Hannah Brightwater. I know it's too soon. I know I'm not good enough for you, but I can't help it. You've brought light back into my world when I thought I'd live in darkness forever. Hannah's heart soared. I love you too, Caleb. I think I have since that first night when you carried me through the storm. They made love then, slowly and tenderly, Caleb worshipping every inch of her body with reverent touches that erased the memory of Grimwald's cruelty. Hannah discovered that passion could be beautiful, that desire could heal rather than destroy. Afterward, they lay entwined before the fire, Hannah's head on Caleb's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. What happens when spring comes? She asked quietly. Caleb's arms tightened around her. What do you want to happen? I want us to have a real life together. Maybe find a place to settle down. Start fresh. Hannah traced patterns on his chest with her fingertip. But Grimwald will never stop looking. For me, as long as he's alive, I'll never truly be free. And we make sure he can't hurt you anymore, Caleb said grimly. You promised you wouldn't go after him. I promised I wouldn't destroy myself for revenge. This is different. This is protecting the woman I love. Caleb tilted her chin up to meet his eyes. I won't let him take you away from me, Hannah. Won't lose someone else I care about? Hannah saw the determination in his face and knew there would be no talking him out of it. Then we do it together. I won't hide while you face danger alone. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. We're partners. Now, Caleb, equal partners. That means we face everything together, the good and the bad. Hannah's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Besides, I'm the only one who knows his habits, his weaknesses. You'll need me. Caleb studied her face in the firelight, seeing the strength that had been forged in the crucible of her suffering. She was right. She was no longer the terrified girl he'd rescued from the mill. She had become something fierce and powerful, a force to be reckoned with. All right, he said finally. We do this together, but we do it smart, and we do it safe.
Hannah
sealed their pact with a kiss, tasting their shared future on his lips. Spring came early to the mountains, melting the snow and filling the air with the promise of new beginnings. Caleb and Hannah had spent the winter months planning, gathering information from the occasional traveler who passed their way about, Grimwald's movements and habits. They learned that he had posted a large reward for Hannah's return, claiming she had stolen valuable items from his house. Several bounty hunters had been seen combing the mountains, but none had come close to the hidden cabin. He's getting desperate, Hannah observed as they sat on the porch watching the sunrise paint the valley in shades of gold. The longer I'm free, the more it damages his reputation. Caleb nodded grimly. Men like him can't stand to lose control. He'll make a mistake soon. Their opportunity came in the form of a wounded stranger who stumbled into their clearing one evening, bleeding from a gunshot wound in his shoulder. Caleb and Hannah helped the man inside, tending his injury while he told them his story. Names. Cornelius Ashford, he gasped, accepting a cup of water gratefully. I was one of the bounty hunters, looking for the missing girl. But when I started asking questions in town, I learned the truth about what kind of man Grimwald really is.
Hannah's
blood ran cold. What truth? You're not the first girl he's taken. There have been others over the years. Young women who disappeared, families paid to keep quiet. Ashford's eyes were haunted. I tried to back out, but Grimwald's men came after me, said I knew too much. Where is he now? Caleb asked quietly. Holed up in that mansion of his, surrounded by hired guns. But I know a way in servants' entrance through the wine cellar. The lock's been broken for years, and he never bothered to fix it. Ashford struggled to sit up straighter. I can't let him keep hurting innocent girls. If you're planning to go after him, I want to help. Caleb and Hannah exchanged glances. This was the break they'd been waiting for. Can you ride? Caleb asked. Ashford nodded. I'll manage. We go tonight, Hannah said firmly, before he has time to find another hiding place. They rode through the darkness, three unlikely allies united by a common purpose. Hannah's heart pounded as they approached Grimwald's estate, memories of her captivity threatening to overwhelm her. But Caleb's steady presence beside her kept her grounded, gave her strength. The mansion loomed against the starry sky, its windows glowing with warm light that seemed to mock the darkness within. Ashford led them to the hidden entrance, the rusted door creaking open at his touch. "The main house is through that corridor," he whispered. "Grimwald's study is on the second floor. Third door on the right?" Caleb squeezed Hannah's hand. "You sure about this?" Hannah nodded, her jaw set with determination. "It's time to end this." They crept through the shadowy corridors, avoiding the guards patrolling the main areas. Hannah's knowledge of the house's layout proved invaluable, guiding them through servants, passages, and hidden stairways. Finally, they reached Grimwald's study. Through the crack under the door, they could see lamplight flickering within. Hannah's hand trembled as she reached for the handle, but she forced herself to turn it slowly. Mordecai. Grimwald sat behind his massive oak desk, writing in a ledger. He looked up as they entered, his face cycling through surprise, rage, and cold calculation in the space of a heartbeat. "Well, well," he said smoothly, setting down his pen. "The little bird has flown back to her cage, and she's brought friends." "Haven't come back to you, Grimwald," Hannah said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I've come to make sure you never hurt another innocent girl." Grimwald's laugh was like ice cracking. "Still playing the innocent, are we?" "Came to me willingly, my dear. Begged me to help your dear aunt." His cold eyes shifted to Caleb. "And who might this be? Another conquest?" "You always were a clever little manipulator." Caleb took a step forward, his hand resting on his gun. "You talk about her like that again, and it'll be the last thing you ever say threats." Grimwald stood slowly, his hand moving toward the drawer where Hannah knew he kept a loaded pistol. "In my own home? How terribly rude. Don't." Hannah's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "I know what you're reaching for. Move away from the desk." Grimwald's eyes narrowed. "You've grown bold, little bird. Prison has changed you." "You did," Hannah replied, stepping into the lamplight where he could see her clearly. "You made me strong. Every day you kept me chained. Every night you tried to break my spirit. You were forging me into something you could never control." 4. The first time since they'd entered the room, uncertainty flickered across Grimwald's face. The cowering girl he remembered was gone, replaced by a woman who radiated quiet strength and unshakable resolve. "You can't prove anything," he said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Who's going to believe the word of a delusional girl and a known outlaw?" "I will." Ashford stepped from the shadows, a folder of documents in his good hand. "I've been gathering evidence for weeks. Financial records, witness statements, correspondence with other men who share your particular appetites." He tossed the folder onto the desk. "It's all there, Grimwald. Every dirty secret, every innocent life you've destroyed." Grimwald's face went ashen as he flipped through the papers. "This ... this is impossible. I destroyed ... you destroyed the originals. But copies have a way of surfacing, especially when people start asking the right questions." Ashford's smile was grim. "Federal marshals are already on their way. Should be here by dawn." "You're lying," Grimwald snarled, but desperation crept into his voice. "Am I?" Hannah moved closer, her green eyes blazing with triumph. "Even if we are, do you really want to take that chance? How many families will come forward once they know you can't hurt them anymore? How many other girls will finally find the courage to tell their stories?" Grimwald's composure finally cracked. With a roar of rage, he lunged for the gun in his desk drawer. But Caleb was faster, his Colt clearing leather in one smooth motion. The gunshot echoed through the study like thunder.
"Oh."
Grimwald stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder, his own weapon clattering to the floor. "That's for every girl you ever hurt," Caleb said coldly, his gun still trained on the wounded man. "And this ... he pulled back the hammer again. "This is for Hannah." "No." Hannah's hand closed over Caleb's, gently lowering the gun. "He's not worth it. Let the law handle him now." The sound of horses and shouting voices filled the night air as federal marshals surrounded the estate. True to Ashford's word, justice had arrived with the dawn. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the doorway of their new cabin, watching Caleb work in the garden they'd planted together. The trial had been swift and decisive. Grimwald was sentenced to life in prison, his vast estate seized and sold to compensate his victims. with the reward money for helping capture him. Hannah and Caleb had bought a small farm in Oregon Territory, far from the shadows of their past. They'd been married by a traveling preacher on a hillside overlooking the Columbia River. With Ashford serving as witness and best man, Mrs. Ironwood, Caleb called, looking up from the tomato plants with dirt-stained hands and a smile that made her heart flutter. "Come see what's growing in our garden." Hannah laughed, walking into the sunshine to join her husband. "Just vegetables, I hope. We're not ready for anything else to take root just yet." Caleb's grin widened as he pulled her into his arms, not caring about the dirt on his clothes. "Give it time, darling. Give it time." As the sun set over their new life, painting the sky in brilliant shades of hope and promise, Hannah knew that. Sometimes the darkest storms led to the most beautiful dawns. In Caleb's arms, surrounded by the life they'd built from the ashes of their pain, she had found not just love, but the courage to bloom again. The drifter and the girl he'd saved had become something greater than either could have imagined. Alone they had become home to each other, proof that even the most broken hearts could learn to love again.